Hi everybody and welcome back to Scary Nightmare. As you can see from the title of this video, I've decided to compile part 3 and 4 and 5 all together. And that's it. I hope you guys will enjoy this. And also, this story is very weird, man. I don't even know how to hack. People say it's real or the person who wrote it literally claimed it's real. But as I'm reading it, it just got weirder and weirder. I'll just let you guys judge on it yourself. And just after you hear it, if you found anything, just let me know about it down below in the comment section. As I'm very, very curious to know all of your opinions down below in the comment section. So do not forget about this, as I highly appreciate it. Thank you. I mean, from my own perspective, I have no idea whether if that was a dream or something real happening in real life. But it's very, very, very weird, guys. Just check it out for yourself and let me know after you listen to it. And hey, before you get to watch from part 3, come on, man, what are you doing? Go watch from part 1 if you haven't watched it yet. Watch part 1, part 2, and just hop on this video. You'll get to hear the rest of it. That way you will get to understand it from the inceptional point until right here. And with that being said, 1, 2, 3, action. I tried running, but my burnt leg was no help. I limped as fast as I could, even though my neighbors were walking with some strange device. I shoved some people and shot some people that were more aggressive. It was hard, but it helped knowing those are not my neighbors. I made it to the forest. Everyone was chanting my name in an angry voice, getting more and more intense until the point where they were screaming it. The voices were getting louder and louder, so I had to run faster. I became aware that I was running over bodies. Bodies with their stomachs cut open perfectly. Their eyes were rolled back, but didn't have any veins. They were all in the same perfect position. Arms are straight by their sides. Legs straight and pointed. There wasn't any blood. There was just a white milky substance and circular gray pods gushing out of their sliced bodies, sort of like bursting boba or the stuff they put in the boba tea. Whatever it was, it literally scared the hell out of me. It was literally like a graveyard for the imperfect. So as I'm trying to get out of there, trying to step over the mass of deceased bodies but failing miserably, I slipped and fell down a hill, landing in a creek. I went to get up, but the same distorted voice from the alert telling me to stay in. I did, and before I knew it, something was pulling me under the water. A strong, fast force that I could not fight no matter how hard I tried. I was literally being pulled down a hole in the creek. I started to lose consciousness as I went deeper and deeper into this hole. Then everything went blank. I woke up in the same spot on the couch when I fell asleep with my family when the sirens started. I was back in my sweat pants and purple dinosaur hoodie, but I was dirty. Surprisingly, not wet though. I got up and looked around frantically. No one was there. I searched everywhere for doppelgangers, holding up my gun while turning every corner. I think I'm back home. I left my house, looked for Annie at her house, and surprisingly, no one was there. She was right. Everyone is in their world. I thought all hope was lost, but I remembered I could text. And I also thought to myself that this creek could be our way out. I went back down to the creek. There were more holes, multiple, with names labeled on them. Kelsey, my mom, she had a hole. My freaking hamster had a hole as well. Everyone in the neighborhood had a specific hole, and that was quite weird. Then I was like, what do I do now? I tried texting, and no service was there. No one is answering my calls. The police won't be able to handle this. But then I was like, wait, I just got a text from another contact named Annie saying, where are you? It's not the same person I had that chat with. That's it. I'm going down the halls. I'm getting my family and this whole neighborhood back, or what's left of it. I'll just try my best. I grabbed my dad's shotgun that I bought with me while escaping my fake home and got in the water. I stepped in the sinkhole and I was like, whoosh, I just went inside. And then all of a sudden I found myself all the way in the other side of the world. But then I was like, wait, how am I not wet? That's kind of weird. I thought to myself. I walked out of the forest, past the bodies with orbs overflowing out of their mouths, and finally got to the neighborhood. Same pastel houses, same motionless clouds, same extremely green grass with a perfectly symmetrical flower pattern. God, I hated this place so much, and I needed to find my brother. I glanced at my fake home and cocked a gun. I was walking towards my house. Then I saw Mrs. Bentley too, outside watering her plants, frozen in a bent-over position. And according to my memory, the real Mrs. Bentley was very old and was in a wheelchair. Looks like her doppelganger got an upgrade. Then I almost made it to my house when Annie too suddenly appeared in front of me. She was like, "How are you doing today, Harper?" Smiling with that nauseating Joker grin. Then I was like, well, I'm doing wonderful as always, Annie. How do you do? I gagged in my mind after saying that though. Then she was like, well, I'm just doing fantastic. Then as I'm looking at Annie, I noticed that Annie was looking down at my shotgun, noticing that I'm back in my hoodie with dirt all over me. And as she was gazing at that, her smile turned into an expressionless stare. And all of a sudden she started crying, again with no emotions. She started to walk closer. I backed up and she started screaming, charging at me. I pulled the trigger and kicked her lifeless body. It was cruel, but I needed to make sure she was dead. Her body convulsed for 1 second. Then her mouth started gurgling the same white liquid as the people in the forest. And as all of this happened, I noticed 2 men in white and blue suits that literally came out of nowhere and started walking next to each other at the same pace towards Annie too. They picked her up and walked into the forest, not paying any attention to me at all. Neither did anyone outside. I thought to myself, maybe if I don't acknowledge them or talk to them, maybe they won't freak me out or freak out in general. I tested it out by shooting Mrs. Bentley from a distance, not talking to her. No one paid attention, didn't even flinch. Then another pair of men in suits took her into the forest. Yes, it worked well. I realized how dark my thought just was, but it was for the best. I finally got to my house. I slowly pushed the door open and sneaked in. My family included Harper too, which is me, and my real brother were frozen at the breakfast table. They were just sitting there, not eating anything, and for some reason my brother looked somehow happy, but I knew it was him. He just looked at the food. He didn't want to eat it, but as you know, it wasn't actual food at the table. It looked like flesh, covered in those gray bursting boba or thingies. I held up my gun, my fingers shaking at the trigger. I felt bad, but for my information, they're not my family. And literally guys, that thought was the only thing that kept me sane till now. Then of course, I started whispering, just saying psst. You know that sound. I was literally doing that sound so that just my brother can hear me. I literally was like psst, psst, in a very, very low voice. And he looked over and saw me. My eyes lit up at the sight of him, but he looked at me and nodded his head no. I think that he was signaling me to leave and come back later, but I'm not taking that chance. I waited outside the house for a while until they were done with their breakfast. I peered through the window and no one was at the breakfast table. I went in the house, walked past Mom too and Dad too, and found my way to Chris's room. I saw him playing with a Rubik's Cube on his bed, and then I shouted, "Chris!" Then I ran up and hugged him. He was like, "Hi, Harper. What are you doing here? If you're here to rescue me, I want to stay. It's so nice here. Just look around." And as soon as he just told me that, I was like, wait, what? I sat baffled, extremely confused by what he just said. Then my brother was like, "Harper, come on. It is absolutely dangerous here. You should go." And you heard me. I want to stay. I walked up to him and sat down in front of him, grabbing his shoulders. I was like, "Chris, what about Mom and Dad? They miss you dearly. I mean a lot." The fancy doppelganger language was getting into my head, and I'm sure it would be great to have you back. Plus, I didn't just come all this way to get an attitude from you. Just look at yourself. Little whiny Chris wants to stay. Isn't that miserable? And as soon as I said that, my brother literally started shouting at me. He was like, "Go away!" And he started pushing me. I was like, "Shh, just calm down. Okay, I'm sorry, but I'm not leaving without you." And then he was like, Ma. I was like, "Chris, that's not your mom. Wake up." And he was like, "No, yes it is. That's Mom." I was like, oh my God. He's literally brainwashed to this degree. And as we're going back and forth with the conversation, I started hearing footsteps coming up the stairs. I hit Chris with my gun accidentally while turning around, knocking him out. I know, but hey, at least he's coming with me for sure now. And then soon enough, Mom too was standing at the doorway smiling. Literally guys, she was smiling there, standing with a freaking axe. She ran at me swinging it. She missed and hit the wall while she was trying to get it out. I shot her. I grabbed Chris and ran. I made it to the worlds and found Mrs. Bentley too, and added to the pile of people with their stomachs cut open, pouring out the gray orbs. I got to the creek and went back down Chris's hall. I got back to our real house, laid him down on my couch, and tied him up in case he tried to escape or make things worse. Then I went back into the forest, and this time I jumped into the hole that had my mom's name on it. Then after the jump, I regained consciousness in the forest. Now I'm in my mom's home. I did the same thing. Go past the houses, Mrs. Bentley too, everything, all of it, you know. I winded up at the house and burst in, not scared to shoot. At least that's what I thought I was going to do. I walked in on my mom crying, clutching a knife in her hand, with the doppelganger family tied up, not making a sound. They were on the floor, not even struggling. Then I was like, Mom. She turned around quickly, dropping the knife. She's like, baby, oh my God. She ran over me and hugged me tight, but then stopped and had a confused look. She's like, wait, that's not you. I was like, yeah, Mom, that's me. And also, I brought Chris back home. Then she was like, oh, I knew it was you. And then she started telling me that I tied these guys up because I really didn't know why, but, you know, the neighborhood, everything was different. And how did you get here? Huh? Where are we? And what do you mean by Chris is back home? I was like, it's okay, Mom. I've been there. I'll explain everything that happened when we get back. Then I grabbed her hand and ran out to the forest. We stopped when we came across some of the neighbors circled around the dead bodies near the creek, holding hands. And as you know, their mouths were covered with that milky liquid. I was like, holy shit. Did they eat the dead bodies? Then my mom grabbed my hand and started to run back to the neighborhood. I was like, no, wait, we need to get to the holes to get back home. She's like, the holes? I was like, trust me, just trust me, let's go. Then we ran past what looked like a ritual and got to the creek. My mom stared at the sinkholes, baffled once again. Then I said, get in, Mom. She hesitated at first, but she did. I was about to go, but took one last look at the circled corpses. They were gone. I jumped in, waking up with my mom tugging at my shoulder saying, wake up. I took her back to the house to greet Chris. I let her have her moment of happiness before telling her dad the rest of the neighborhood are still in those fucking holes. Then I was like, Ma, I gotta go back again. She didn't want me at first, but I explained to her everything that happened. She literally should stay with Chris anyways, you know. And just a little hint, when we came back from the hall, I noticed Chris looking at us terrified, his head and his knees, and was sitting in the corner. I think he knew everything was gone. The neighborhood was dead, empty, lifeless. I hugged my mom and went back into the forest. At this point, I know what to do, but I had to be cautious at the same time. I stared at my dad's hole, jumped in, woke up, got up, started walking, and something was wrong. It smelled like something was burning. The closer I got to the neighborhood, the stronger the smell got. And it wasn't too long until I started seeing the dim orange light, covered by smoke. All the houses were on fire. I was shouting, saying, Dad! I thought I ran closer to the glowing light, covering my mouth and coughing, trying not to inhale the smoke. I searched endlessly through the streets, behind the sound of the crackling, burning houses. I could hear the siren. I never hated a sound more than this one. I walked in until I saw someone in the middle of the street. They were sitting. At first, I thought it was a doppelganger, but it was my dad talking to himself repeatedly saying, I killed them all. I literally killed them all. He had a box of matches in his hand, and he was the one who started all this fire. I immediately ran up to him and grabbed his shoulder. He flinched and pulled out a bloody cleaver, putting it down, realizing it was me. Then my dad was like, is that you, Harper? I was like, yes. Come on, what the hell are you doing in here? He was like, I thought you were dead. I killed all of you. Then I said to my dad, well, that isn't me, Dad. Everyone here isn't them. Just come with me. We need to get back, Dad. I pulled him through the smoke, struggling. I felt like I was going to pass out, but we needed to get out. I was not going to die here. Neither was my dad. If it wasn't for adrenaline level, we would have been stuck here forever. We made it to the forest as we both fell to the ground, counting until I felt like our lungs exploded. My dad crawled over to me and hugged me. I was really satisfied that I had my family back, but I couldn't help thinking about Annie, or Jameson, which is my friend. I mean, he lives in another neighborhood, but what if this is happening to everybody? I think it can't just be us. But let's just say that it was only us. Why just us? Like, why? We had a fight before the sirens began, so I didn't text him just because I was mad at him. God, I can be a bitch sometimes. I deeply regret it, you know. My heart sunk at the thought he might be dead. Anyways, me and my dad got up and I told him to get in his hole. He laughed, something I didn't hear in a long time. I told him it was our only way out. He refused, so I pushed him in. I chuckled and went in after him. Then I woke up to Dad carrying me by the shoulders through the forest. I weakly told him that Mom and Chris were at the house and to trust me and just go. He's always been stubborn, but this time he listened. He probably listened because he just wanted to at least have hope they were alive. Then we arrived at the house, our mom anxiously waiting on the couch. I looked down. I was completely blackened by the smoke. Same with my dad. My mom greeted my dad, laid us down, and got us a drink of water. I was extremely weak and tired, and my dad had a huge bloody gash on his back. It looked like he just got hit by an axe. Then me and my family just talked for a while. My mom thanked me. I don't know why. I just did what I had to do. It wasn't too long before I got up, wanting to go to Annie's hole. My dad grabbed me before I could grab his shotgun. He was like, "Come on, don't go, please." I was like, "Dad." My mom put her hand on my dad's shoulder, hopefully to let me go to Annie's hole. He was like, "Harper, you've been through enough." I was like, "Dad, I can handle it." And I whined. It was humorous thinking about it. I could imagine begging my dad like I was asking for a toy I wanted. I was like, "Can I go into the hole, please? Just let me go." We have no time to make jokes, but fuck it. The past couple of days have been total shit. I deserve a laugh, You almost died, Harper. Can't we just sit through this? Call the police and figure out how? I was like, "There's nothing to figure out, Dad. I can figure this out. Neither can you. No one can. Until now, there's no explanation for any of this, Dad. And the cops? Are you kidding me? The cops wouldn't believe us anyway. They wouldn't know what the hell to do. Just think of their faces when we say the entire neighborhood are trapped inside these sinkholes in the forest creek. And that's, of course, along with these doppelgangers. What do you think they will say, Dad? Come on, just look at me." My dad sat there silent, took a deep breath, got up, and went to his office. Came back with his box of shotgun shells and handed them to me. He was like, "If you're not back in a couple of hours, I'm coming to get you." I was like, "All right, Dad, fine. But remember, if you enters Annie's hole, you have to leave out of Annie's hole. If you do not, I think you might get back to your own world, and you don't want to get back to yours." Then he was like, "Got it. Now, go before I change my mind." He said that reluctantly. My mom and my dad hugged me, and Chris waved goodbye. He looked happier compared to how he was before. I walked through the forest and stared at Annie's hole. And then I was like, "I'm coming, Annie. Hang in there." I jumped into the patrol, my consciousness slowly fading. I woke up, smelling the stench of the corpses, while getting myself off the ground. I heard screams. I darted my way over to Annie's house. I opened the door and Harper too crashed into me while it seemed like trying to kill Annie. Then I fell to the ground and I met my eyes with me. It was really strange, seeing myself any other way than a camera or a mirror. "Harper." I tried to respond, but Harper too now had her hands around my throat, squeezing tighter and tighter, with that big fat grin on her face. Or my face, I guess. I tried reaching for the shotgun, but it was out of my reach. We rolled around for what it seems like eternity. Then I got on top of her and started punching her like crazy until my knuckles felt sore. She didn't stop. She was insanely strong. She eventually escaped my grasp and pushed me to the ground, strangling me again. I was weakly calling for Annie. I was like, "Annie, Annie," as I pointed to the gun. It wasn't too long until I realized she was fighting off her mom, who had a cleaver. I was like, "We're so fucked," I thought to myself, defeated. But then Harper 2's legs slipped, no longer pinning my full body down, and I got a hold of my legs back. I kicked her in the chest and grabbed my shotgun. Before I could shoot her, she shot me with that weird device thing that the people were carrying around when I tried to escape through the gates. Then I fell to the floor, Annie still fighting her mom. Everything swirled and spun around me until I closed my eyes. When I opened them, I was floating in what seemed like space, but dark gray with swirly clouds of white. It looked like an ink drop of water, or some paint spilled in water. Like those iPhone wallpapers, all trippy, But I needed to get out of here. I swam through the dark mass, not finding any way out. I was losing hope. Then I saw me. Well, that was the Harper 2, And then as soon as that happened, I stared at her for a second, then went over to her. I was like, "What do you want?" I tried to ask firmly, but coming out weak. She didn't answer at all. She just snapped her head back at me, but this time she wasn't smiling. She had a look of intense fear. She looked at me and started clawing at her cheek. She clawed more and more until she was ripping her skin off. She peeled a thick layer of flesh, revealing a gray, oily yet smooth surface. She kept peeling until a large oval-like gray head covered with slime appeared. It opened its yellow glowing eyes and screeched. That was the sound I heard when the sirens went off. It was literally the exact same. I turned around and swam as fast as I could. The thing started following me, now in its full form, covered in hose, long, huge spider legs with claws, and a see-through body filled with those tiny gray orbs. It tried impaling me with its leg a couple of times, while making this weird clicking noise. It sounded like bone cracking. I came across a hole. I didn't know if it would do anything, but I jumped inside of it anyways. I just wanted to get away from that thing. I was in Annie's world. Once again, I woke up in the same position with Annie still fighting her mom. I looked over and Harper too was gone. Somehow, I grabbed the shotgun quickly and blasted Annie's mom too. Annie looked at her mom and then looked at me. Then I was like, Annie, how long was I gone? She's like, 1 second after the second version of you shot you. Then Annie responded to me in a breathless way. How did you get here? It felt like I was gone for hours. I told Annie everything that happened, including the holes. She didn't seem that shocked. I wouldn't have either. After all this, we went back to forest and went through the hole. When we got back to my house, she said she wanted to go with me to find her parents. I hesitated but agreed, so we did. Hours went by and we got her parents back, and her dog as well. And for those who are asking about my hamster, yes, Hamburger is still alive as well. And I'm not gonna go into any further details when it comes to that, because basically we did the same thing over and over again. Annie was reunited with her parents and her dog. She tried explaining to them what happened, but called the cops anyways. They asked Annie's family and mine ridiculous questions. They looked pretty baffled too, but we all told them the same story. It has been 5 days since this happened, so they could just file a missing person case on almost everyone in the damn neighborhood. I didn't tell them about the holes. I told everyone not to, since they might quarantine it for something. I don't really know what the cops did, but they searched the houses and left. I'm pretty sure they filed a missing persons case. I mean, they had to. Then after all of this, I started to get really tired of getting people out of the doppelganger worlds, but I had to. I got one person out of a family, and I told him to go. Just go get your family. And I even told them about the rules of these holes and everything. And I also had to remind them to exit through the portal they went in while getting someone out. They should do that. And I also told them that you can't dress fancy just to act like them, bring guns and everything else. And that sort of worked. Some people were too afraid to go in at first, and some came back with the dead bodies of their family. And some came out without their family at all, saying they couldn't find them. But it was happening very slowly. If more people are in there for any longer, they will literally die. I couldn't stop thinking about that weird place I was in with that thing. I think he's the cause of this. I have to find it and kill it. I went through Mrs. Bentley's hole with a backpack filled with weapons and thought about how to make the doppelgangers get their weird weapons out. Then I was like, why didn't they just shoot everyone with it when they had the chance? And what makes them take it out anyways? The only time I saw them do it was when I was trying to escape through the gates and the sirens went off. And when I was fighting myself, maybe if they discover something that's imperfect, like me escaping through the gate, you're probably not supposed to do that, or having two of the same people in one world. So I went to my house and found myself. We fought, and soon she pulled out the strange-looking gun and shot me. I waited and waited until I was in the space-like void. I searched and searched for the beast. I was giving up hope when I heard that blood-curdling screech. I could see it floating, yet charging at me. It's absolutely terrifying, but I had to kill this thing. It just felt right. I shot it with my gun. Useless. The bullets deflected. I was like, well, shit. I thought, how the hell am I going to do this? While I was getting out a knife from my backpack, the creature sliced my arm pretty bad with its sharp legs. I tried chopping its leg off, and that was still useless. It kicked me around like a soccer ball when I tried to get close to it. It was hard, but I got on top of it, and I tried axing its head. It broke the fucking axe. All useless. And as this happened, I cut my cheek and the back of my leg. I cried out in pain, mostly from the pain, some from the thought that I may not be able to kill this thing. Then it spoke. It said, "You cannot kill me. Reverse, gather the pieces." And it said this in the same strange layered voice from the alert on my TV. It felt like it was talking in my mind. like telepathy. And while I was floating, holding my leg, I saw its stomach filled with pods. It was made of a different material than the steel-like legs, almost like a thin layer of jello. I also had a box of matches. I swam under the thing, grabbing onto its stomach. It jerked around and tried to reach me with its legs but failed. I got the matches out, struggling to hold on to its oily smooth skin covered in slime. I cut open its stomach and threw the match inside the little gray orbs. It let out a different screech this time. It sounded like defeat. I let go of its stomach and swam past it, seeing it now floating in the air, covered in flames. The thing struggled to shake off the flames. Then as I'm doing all of this, the creature said, "No, he cannot. You finish, I must. The beautiful and the dead." After it said that, it started speaking gibberish like Chris did when we played Monopoly. I watched him burn until he couldn't speak anymore, and then I left. I soon found a hole and got back to Mrs. Bentley's world. When I got there, everyone was on fire. All the doppelgangers on the floor in flames. It made me happy to see them burn. What a dark thought. Well, whatever. I got Mrs. Bentley out of her world and got back to the real world now. Then when I woke up, I saw the people who hadn't made it back from the holes yet. Everyone was back. They were unconscious outside of their holes. Some were awake already, confused and in a daze. I got them back to their houses, and of course, a bunch of people called the cops. They thought we were all bullshitting this, but they were confused as well. I wonder why other people didn't go looking for some people in our neighborhood. Everyone is pretty spooked about this whole thing. But you know, I'm just glad that almost everyone is back. Some didn't though, as some others called the ambulance for the injured and the deceased. Then I had to text my boyfriend since I had signal again. He gotta be mad at me still. I felt bad about fighting with him and missed him awfully. I drove to his neighborhood. The streets were oddly empty. Only a couple other cars were there, which is odd. We usually have a lot of traffic. I got to his eerily quiet neighborhood and knocked on his door with a nut in my stomach, and no answer was there still. I started to panic, so I went in and no one was there. I ran to the other houses and searched everywhere, and I was like, oh my god, there's no one here. And that's the end of today's story. To be honest guys, after reading all of this, I don't even know if this is real or no. Like, I don't know what to say. I'm very, very much reactionless. I don't know how to react towards this, but this was crazy, guys. If you guys enjoyed this story, please smash me that thumbs up button right now and share it with all of your friends so that they can get to hear it and just let us know what's up. Until then, see you again.